We're live. Welcome to another installment of the Final Scoop podcast. My name is Robert Schinetsky, joining the supplement engineer. Holy cow, I need some coffee in me. I'm stuttering over the intro. Joining me, as always, is my international band of brothers and Shane Smith, Stack.com, Robert Samborsky, Apollon Nutrition, Lukasz, Rytkowski, Prometeus Intelligent Sports Technology. And joining us this week, special guest, the Managing Director of Switch Nutrition, Mr. Greg Haglund. My friends, how are you doing? Greg, thank you for making time. I know it is dark 30 where you are. It's early in the morning. So how are things?
Things are great. It's a Sunday morning, and as we were discussing up here, it's Anzac Day here, which is a bit of a memorial day for our fallen war heroes. So town's buzzing, and at 3:30 in the morning, which is kind of crazy on a Sunday. So I'm wide awake. I've got my nootropic coffee, and I'm ready to roll.
Outstanding. Well, we definitely appreciate you doing this. It's earlier where you are than where Shane is, so Shane has no excuses for being groggy, slow, or cranky, grumpy this morning. So that's what it is there.
I'm still gonna be. Just so you know.
Just look at his face.
No
I went to
on
sleep
this show.
too late, and that's my fault. I'm to blame.
And for the listeners tuning in on the live stream, thank you all for joining us. If you have any comments, questions, queries, or quips for us or Greg, or anything about Switch Nutrition, supplements in general, or the big UFC event tonight or in Sunday morning for New Zealand and Australia, feel free to throw them in the comments section. We'll answer anything and everything during our time together with you folks here. And Faz Lifts is checking in. He's from over in Britain, which I just met him the other week. We did a live on Steve Shaw's Massive Iron channel. Faz is a natural bodybuilder, personal trainer, coach, all that good stuff. So thanks for tuning in, Faz. Greg, anytime we have a first-time guest on the show, we like to get kind of like their background, their history with supplements. Well, how'd you get into this industry? Because we all come from such weird backgrounds. The supplement industry is kind of like this cauldron of like interesting backgrounds, histories, and whatnot. So walk the listeners through how you got into the industry, the founding of Switch Nutrition, and what your current role is, what you're doing there with the brand.
Yeah, look, sure. So I've been working with supplements for over 20 years now, and in my late teens, like probably many people that are in supplements today, I started out as a PT. So I was a personal trainer and got to sort of know my craft at a fairly young age. Actually, I started as a gym instructor before PTs was even a thing, and I was working in a world gym in Christchurch in New Zealand, and just as a sort of casual and just doing my qualifications, and loved it, loved personal training, loved everything about it. I was playing quite high level rugby, rugby union for those people who don't follow the national sport of New Zealand, as we've just been discussing off here. But it was what I loved. I was very passionate about sport. Played a lot of it, and broke my ankle, so I had to get back into rehabilitation, and I hit the gym to do that, and then really fell in love with that. Started helping people achieve their goals through personal fitness, and then got a real interest in nutrition. So that was where I caught the bug on nutrition. I just loved how changing the macros and calories and the foods and how it impacted the body. And I don't think the science will ever really be settled on that. I know that when I'm discussing weight loss, weight gain, which is some of the easier stuff when it comes to the discussions around calories and macros. It sounds simple, but there's a lot going on internally in the body, and it's just so interesting to understand how all the different antioxidants and polyphenols and vitamins and minerals and how they interact in the body, and the gut microbiome, which we've learned more in the last 6 months than we've known in the last 6 to 10 years, and all of that sort of stuff. I wasn't learning about that 20 years ago, you know what I mean? But I was learning about nutrition and loving it. And the only area where I didn't have a whole lot of expertise was supplements. So I felt like that was kind of a weakness for me, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about it. So I put myself in a position where I was working as a salesperson inside probably the most popular supplement store in the city. And I learned my craft there. And I was very, very lucky because the owner of that store gave us access to PubMed, because he'd paid for it, and we had all the access to all of the research, all the science, all of the data, and we were encouraged 2 hours a week minimum to learn more about the ingredients. And this is, keep in mind, 20 years ago, this is when EAS was just releasing phosphagen or creatine to the market. Creatine wasn't even in the market. And in New Zealand, we were paying $180 for 300 grams of creatine. So it is crazy to think that that's what was going on back there, and we didn't really have the understanding. A lot of doctors were saying, "Hey, creatine is causing kidney failure because it's increasing creatinine." A lot of confusion around supplements and all of that, and so we were just learning, and we were just sponges, and I continue to be, like, even as the managing director of Switch Nutrition and an educator. My mantra is, today I might be the teacher, but tomorrow I'm the student. I continue to keep learning. I use Stack3D to learn. I use anyone I can find to learn. Anyone that's smarter than me, I'm listening to them and understanding, nutrition, supplements. So started in supplements at a supplement store, started managing those supplement stores, and there wasn't really anywhere to go after that in Christchurch in New Zealand. So I moved across to Australia in 2002, and I started working for GNC. They just opened up in Australia. To be honest, I didn't really want to get back into retail, but beggars can't be choosers, and I started working back in retail. Within 6 weeks, I got picked up by a company that was wholesaling. It was a New Zealand-based company called Nutrilife and Balance, and they were manufacturing products for the Australian New Zealand market, and they needed a sales rep on the road. So I started with them, and within 3 months, I think I'd increased their sales by 300%. And it was just purely by understanding the product and teaching people how to understand and sell it. So from there, I worked with a number of different companies in Australia, formulating and creating supplements. I was there when beta-alanine first came to the market, D-aspartic acid first came to the market. We were the first companies to bring those things to the market. The latter being one that I'm not as convinced on as say the beta-alanine. But there's a lot of time there where I was working on understanding the ingredients right down to the finest detail, how they work with the physiology of the body, what's the timing to take them, what's the dosing to take them, what do they work better with, and throughout that period, as I said, I worked with about 4 or 5 different companies, including the major importer and distributor of US brands into Australia. At one point, we're not huge over here in Australia, but we had 28 different US brands that we were bringing in. Including Jack 3D back in its heyday. And I mean, if you haven't lived through Jack 3D, then you haven't lived. So it was one of those periods where the industry was a bit cowboyish for Australia, and I'm sure we'll get into this shortly, but Australia and New Zealand is tightly governed by FSANZ, which is the Food Standard Australia and New Zealand. And then we have another layer here in Australia called the TGA, which is the Therapeutic Goods Administration, which is something similar to the FDA, but it's far stricter. In the US, to some degree, it's not as easy as this, but you can make a certain physiological claim and state that it hasn't been assessed by the FDA, and you're okay as long as you're not curing or healing any disease. In Australia, we can't make physiological claims on food-based products. So, if I make a product that helps to lower stress or increase, energy, I can't actually say that if it's a food unless it's a therapeutic food. But again, we'll get into that. So, when I came out of working for other people, I guess when we got to 4 years ago, we're now coming up on the 4th birthday of Switch Nutrition, and it was about 5 years ago that I sort of met with a friend of mine and said, "Do you know what? There's really no good high-end quality products that are using the latest cutting-edge ingredients at the physiological levels that's natural. Everything that was coming through had artificial colors, flavors, preservatives, and sweeteners, and that's their thing. That's fine. If they want to do that, that's great. But I wanted something different for me personally. I wanted something different for my partner. She was suffering with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid. So she was avoiding everything synthetic, chemical that could set off that autoimmunity. And so we wanted natural products that would not only help improve physiology and aesthetics, but also improve the health and wellness of the person using it. So that was our main goal, is everything we produce for us, and everything we produce for the end goal of improving the way you look, feel, and function. And that's how Switch Nutrition was born.
Fantastic. What's I guess what are your day-to-day roles with the brand? Like, or do you have kind of like, so managing director, is that equivalent to a CEO? Or are you more like on the R&D side of things, getting the brand out in front of people, like doing the handshake deals and things like that? Walk listeners through that a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, when we started, like a lot of little brands, we started in the garage of our garage. Took out the cars, put the stock in there, and away we went. And it was just not scalable. Because I had nearly 20 years of experience in Australia and working as a sales rep and wholesale, I had a lot of contacts. So I was going out on the road one day and selling product to stores, going back, packing boxes and sending them out the next day, and then alternating day in, day out at the garage. So within 2 months, we just went, this is not, we can't scale like this. So we sent the stock off down to a 3PL. And from that point forward, it was sales for me. I was just, I'd already formulated, like I've still got another 10 formulas that we haven't released. And they evolved. What you think about 3-4 years ago, you might make changes to today, tomorrow, and even in 3 or 4 months or 3 or 4 years. So as we get closer to bringing those products to market, they don't always look like what they look like, 4 years ago. But point was, heavy lifting was done. I was already, had done all the formulations, had done all of the design. My partner actually came up with the name Switch Nutrition because we were working on a ketogenic product, and at the time there was no BHB in Australia. There's a lot of good research by Dr. Dominic D'Agostino coming out of the US, and we were impressed by that. To be honest, it was it was listening to a couple of podcasts that really convinced me, and that was Tim Ferriss, talking about when he wrote the 4-Hour Work Week and using the tools of the Titans, and he used ketones to improve his brain function and mental focus. And from there, I was hooked. I love biohacking. I love listening to Ben Greenfield and other people like that. Dave Asprey to some degree, just getting into how the body's physiology can be improved through supplementation, food, mindset, all of that sort of stuff. So it kind of at the start started out as sales, packing boxes. Now today it's regulatory, it's formulations. We're at a point where we've been the fastest growing sports nutrition brand in Australia for the last 3 years running. We've turned a lot of heads here locally, which means our competitors have noticed. And unfortunately, tall poppy syndrome, as we call it here in Australia, where when someone's successful, other people like to bring them down rather than trying to compete with them and be successful in their own right. They look at ways to try and undermine them. So in Australia, as I said earlier, we have a lot of strict regulations, but we have this other code called a novel food code. And a novel food code is ingredients, and I was talking to Lukasz about this previously, that are ingredients like lion's mane, reishi mushroom, chaga, rhodiola, resveratrol. And these are ingredients that you'd find day to day in formulated, dietary supplements or formulated supplementary sports foods or, capsules, pills, products throughout the natural health space throughout the world. They're not allowed in Australia. They're not allowed in New Zealand. But we all did it, and we all do it. And because everyone around the world was doing it, and we wanted to remain competitive, and we wanted to remain, innovative. And those ingredients are helpful. There's thousands of years of usage of lion's mane in traditional medicine. So it's really a shock and a shame that those ingredients aren't approved in Australia. And we have issues with companies going, hey, that guy's using it, that guy's using it, that guy's using it. And they'll point each other and throw each other under the bus with the regulatory authority. Those are things that I'm constantly challenged with, and making sure that we're formulating to a level that is compliant, and that we're making sure that we're getting products to the market that are effective, that are innovative, that are competitive, and that actually run in the compliance of the strictness of Australia, which is sometimes actually really desirable around the world. I'm not going to lie. China is a huge export market for Australia, more than the US. We actually export more vitamin supplements to China than the US does, and that's not necessarily just because of the relationships between the US and China. It's more because of the TGA and the strictness of our regulations. It's something that's desirable to the high income earner in China. They just want the best, and they see New Zealand and Australia as that. So that's me in a day-to-day. Yeah, I'm still selling. I'm still talking to retailers. I'm still communicating with them because I'm still educating. The big part of what I do is seminars. Last Saturday I was doing a seminar on hormone health. Next week I'm down in Melbourne for a three-day trip where I'm doing a seminar every night, which we call Switch On Your Health Seminar. And we just basically get 50, 60 people in a room and talk them through, from start to finish, macros, calories, macros, right through to gut health, hormones, supplements, and how it all interplays with stress, sleep, and everything else to get the best result in the shortest amount of time.
And that's all under kind of the Switch Nutrition umbrella. Like you're lumping in the diet, training, and macros, not just you're pushing more of like the holistic lifestyle approach to it, not just saying here, buy our supplements, because that's the real trick to getting everything you want.
100%. And we've always been transparent with that. Like, we've never ever said, hey, this product's going to move the needle completely. You don't need anything else. Don't worry about anyone else. This is all you need. Our conversations start with, how are you training? When are you training? What are you eating? How are you eating? How do you feel after you eat? How do you sleep? What's your stress like? And when we understand those moving pieces, we can start to interplay the supplements that are going to move the needle the best and the fastest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because we've got two products in particular that could be very useful for stress and sleep. One of them is called Adrenal Switch, which is an ashwagandha, magnesium, L-theanine, leucine, glycine, B6 zinc product, which is effective for helping to reduce stress and calm the central nervous system and lower cortisol and improve GABA communication and melatonin release at night. Mm-hmm. But if you're stressed and chronically stressed, it could be something to do with the gut dysbiosis, given that 85 to 90% of the serotonin is released in the gut, which is the calming happy hormone, right? So arguably Vitality Switch, which is our gut health, detoxifying, anti-inflammatory, probiotic, digestive enzyme, super greens blend, could be the answer long-term for stress and sleep issues, whereas immediate, dose-dependent return on results, Adrenal Switch would probably move the needle the fastest. So we generally go in with kind of a, hey, how do we fix this fast and help people see a noticeable result, and how do we support it long-term? And use supplements that synergize together. So a lot of our products are designed to work together. That's not for commerce reasons. It's not to say, oh, you can't use that without this. We'll never say that to people. And often when we're doing these seminars and education pieces, at the end of it, I'll say, now these are the products that really work well together for this problem, and these are the ones that work well for this and this and this. And I'll say to people, you don't have to buy a thing. If you don't think they're going to help you and they're not going to be of any benefit to you after what you've heard tonight, don't bother. Just start moving, some of the pieces around of the things you're not doing with your food, your stress management, your breath work, infrared saunas, things like that. So we've got other pieces that we're trying to educate them on to let them know what they can do to help themselves.
Perfect. You mentioned that the growth of the brand. How are y'all attacking international as aggressively as you are the domestic, or I guess including, we'll include New Zealand in that. Well, I mean domestically, so Australia, New Zealand. Or do you have your sights set on getting into Asia, the Middle East, the Americas, and all of that?
Yeah, most definitely. But it is it's a growth issue. Like, we've been growing so fast here, we haven't been able to keep up with stock demand. Mm-hmm. So everything we're making in terms of profit over the last 4 years has been poured back into stock, and our stock levels in our warehouse have more than quadrupled over that period of time, which they've needed to support the growth of the brand. We have had a distributor in New Zealand and still continue to do so, and we are looking for other distributing partners around the world. Because we're now at that point where we can fund the growth that we've experienced. It's just been a challenge because I come from pretty meek background in terms of finances. So we sort of I had a business partner who helped bankroll this, and we paid his loan back within 6 months of starting the business because we were so successful so fast. But the rest of it's been self-funded. And we're continuing to do that. We don't want to, lean on lenders to try and grow this business. And we're now in a position where we've got stock to support international expansion, and we are having some discussions with the Philippines, with Asia, with the US. The US is a tough market. To be honest, it's low on my list of priorities. And it's not to say that
too many damn companies. I'll say there's too many companies.
Yeah, there is, and we get a lot of international orders through our warehouse to the US. But it's still not anywhere near what the US companies experience, and we are a little different to a lot of them. There are companies like NutriBio over there, and other brands a little bit like what we're doing, but our formulas are a little unique, and even I think Shane would tell you that, and with his experience with a lot of the brands, internationally. Mm-hmm. Switch has its differences, and we have a corny little phrase that we use to describe what we do, and it's our differences that make the difference. It's our attention to detail. It's the use of P5P or pyridoxal 5-phosphate or methylcobalamin, and understanding the polymorphisms of genes and how the body processes these B vitamins and how important they are as cofactors to neurotransmitters and energy metabolism and all these different things. That's why you see us formulating with these ingredients. And a lot of the times they're 10 to 100 times more expensive than the cheaper variants, but they work differently. As an example, P5P helps glutamine convert to GABA, whereas pyridoxine hydrochloride helps glutamine convert to glutamate. Now, GABA's calming and glutamate's excitatory. So you get a very different result from having the different B vitamins, with your product. So it's really important to us that we're actually getting the ingredients that work. And Shane recently reviewed our plant protein, and we're only going to bring products to market, Robert, if we can do better than what's there, or it doesn't exist. So we'll create a market if we see a demand and a problem. And that's what they say in business, right? The best businesses find a solution to a problem, and so we're trying to find solutions to everyday problems. But at the same time, if there's an existing category what we think we can do better, we will come into that category. But we've had a lot of fails. Like, we've had products that we've wanted to do in certain categories and gone, you know what, this isn't even as good as what's in there now. Forget it, move on. We'll go to something else. But one of those successes recently was the plant protein that we created, which we use a smooth protein. We use a combination of that and hemp and algae and organic pea protein, and we've got this 5-protein blend intentionally to give a better amino acid profile, a better, smoother, tastier, creamier texture. And for plant protein to taste the way it does now is just, it wasn't the case 6-12 months ago. And so we've continually improved. Even 12 months ago, I think we sat at number 2 behind Ghost. And then we knew we could improve, and we improved it. We sent it back to Shane and said, have another crack at this, mate. And he put it at number 1 spot because he felt that was the best tasting plant protein in the market. And for us, it's important that it tastes good, it works, and it gets results. And we're open label. We're not hiding anything. It's completely open label, so people know what they're getting. They know what's in there, know what's not in there, and I think that's just as important for a natural brand. We really are focused on getting the results, but it's got to taste good, because you can have the world's best greens, but if it tastes like shit, people aren't going to drink it, and they're not going to use it, and they won't get the result. So we're all about taste, we're all about formula, and that's been the entire focus and the reason we've grown so fast.
Interesting. Yeah, I was just pulled it up, and I was looking through the thing. I'm thinking, all right, well, I see protein switch, but that's kind of ballsy. I mean, most brands will launch with a whey protein or a blend or something like that, and you said, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to go straight to a plant protein as our first plant or our first protein release. That takes some gumption.
Yeah, the entire range is vegan now, except for the greens formula, and the irony is not lost on me. A super greens formula that's not vegan, and the reason for that is that we added marine collagen into it. And I think we were the first company to do that, but we felt that marine collagen, with its low Dalton weight, its low molecular weight, had the ability to help heal the gut lining. So we put a gut healing blend in there of glutamine, probiotics, specifically lactospore or bacillus coagulans, and this marine collagen to help with the healing of the gut. And it works. It works incredibly well, but it pushed a lot of the people that defaulted to our brand as a vegan brand. And we didn't intend to be vegan. Like, we didn't set out that is going to be one of our core values. Our core values is quality, ability to get results, or efficaciousness, taste and honesty. And so we weren't really trying to be vegan, but it just felt that way. And that product was very, very different. So that was quite a ballsy move to put a marine collagen into a greens formula. The reason, and if I'm being honest, that we didn't start with protein is because the technology wasn't there to make it taste as good as it does today. So again, we wouldn't have been successful. And 2, it's bloody heavy. So from an e-commerce perspective, proteins are heavy. They take up space in a warehouse. They take up, cost in terms of freighting and shipping around the world and around the country. And it's a highly competitive market. So, why go into a competitive category that makes very little margin, that makes, it costs your business a lot of time and effort and money, So we put it off for a long time. And, the entire range is dairy-free. I'm personally not a massive fan of the dairy industry in terms of the way that milk proteins are manufactured and the way we get them, and even potentially the different growth hormones that are found in milk protein that help babies grow fast, and not necessarily right for every person throughout their age and their life and their goals. So I haven't been a fan of whey or dairy for a long time, and I haven't personally used whey or dairy for a long time because I haven't felt good on it. So, we haven't released one for that reason, but there's, bigger demand for whey and dairy-based proteins than there is for plant proteins, and we know that. So sometimes we sacrifice what's right for the commerce of the business to what's right for the ethos of the business and what we believe in too.
Excellent. Any of you guys have any questions for Greg? I want to see if we go through the comment feeds here. Ban is back. Yes, Sean. Rod, we're all doing well. Hope you're doing well too. Go ahead, Lukasz.
Yeah, I just want to say, because I was able to try some of the Greg's products recently, because Greg was super kind and he shipped a small care package with all his products my way. So like it was probably 2 weeks ago or something. I reached out to Greg and I told him that the package arrived to my doorstep. So when I busted open, I tried at first the Vitality, which was his greens blend, and basically he put in it like all different flavors, and man, every flavor was on point. There was none like bitterness, no nasty aftertaste, none of that. It was super smooth. I mixed it up with like I think it was 6 ounces of water or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. But the product that like blew my mind was the protein. And I probably got peanut butter if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the small top. It was like 15 servings or 10 servings, Greg, if I remember correctly.
10 servings of peanut butter toffee.
Yeah.
Peanut butter
So
coffee, yeah, that flavor sounds delicious. Holy cow!
guys, I smashed through the top in like 3 days. The consistency of this protein is just amazing. And I reached out to Shane and I also told him, man, this stuff is probably one of the best, if I can honestly say the best vegan protein that I've ever tried so far. So huge shout out to Greg for that and his team, because I'm sure that it took like lots of work and preparation to nail this stuff down. Plus, he's using all natural ingredients and the sweeteners as well. So yeah, man, props from my side, and I will try my best to to get you as many contacts here as possible and just like promote the shit out of the brand, because I really appreciate brands as like yours that it's like super genuine, and plus you're doing something different, and I see the commitment, and also on top of that the attention to detail. As you said, you're using like marine collagen. Most of brands are using like beef collagen, which is super cheap, and marine collagen is not cheap, and the sourcing is also really cost effective. So yeah, and my best regards, for that.
Thanks, Lukasz. Look, I really appreciate that. And just touching on that, we don't use any rice protein in that protein because 2 reasons. One, rice tends to be a bit gritty, but it also has issues with heavy metals. So the way rice is grown in Asia, mostly in water, it becomes a virtual arsenic sponge and heavy metal sponge. So trying to find, and that's not to say that most rice proteins on the market are over the allowable levels of heavy metals, but they still have a level of heavy metals. So we just feel like bringing something into a person's, we're here to help, not harm. That's our approach, right? We want to help people get results, not put any ingredients in that could be harmful. And again, that's why we naturally sweeten with stevia, and we stay away from the sucralose, aspartame and ACE K and things like that. And again, not to suggest that those in low doses are going to be harmful long term. We just don't know. We don't have the studies, but we have seen some short-term studies that aren't necessarily helpful. So we've gone away from that. And when we were in second place behind Ghost, I was a bit pissed off because we're naturally sweetening and they're using sucralose, and I was like, man, that's not fair. So when we got into number 1 spot and a product that's using artificial sweetener, and we're using stevia here, I was just wrapped. I was just like, now we've honed our craft. We've got to a point where we're at that level now. So yeah, there is a lot of R&D. There is a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. I mean, that protein That took us 12 months to develop in the first place, and then another 12 months to again, reformulate and get to a better level. And we started out with that protein, if you recall, Shane, we had velocitol in there. And I'm a massive fan of velocitol, and I caught up with Nutrition 21 in the US and went through all of the research, and I'm a big fan. We were ahead of our time. Like, we were trying to teach people about MPS and muscle protein synthesis and velocitol and how it improves the amino acid transport. And people were like, oh, what? Yeah, and so they just didn't get it. And unfortunately, it's an expensive ingredient for not understanding it. And we did our best to educate people, and we think we're pretty damn good at that. And still the stores are not understanding it. So instead, we took out a very costly ingredient and replaced it with a less costly but more easily understandable ingredient called digizyme, which is a digestive enzyme blend. And people get it. You're like, hey, this digizyme will help you digest your protein better, which will result in greater absorption. Oh, okay, righto, cool. That's great. Let's do that. So we were able to change from a 25 serve to a 30 serve. Which doesn't sound like a lot, but that actually brought us back into line with the competitors in the marketplace. So for that first year, although we were the best tasting plant protein in Australia, we weren't the most competitive. There were other products in the market that were outselling us because they had 30 serves for the price of our 25, because we had this cool new ingredient, velocitol, that no one understood and didn't really sell them. So sometimes you can be a bit ahead of what your competitors are doing and the market understands. And that was just one of the cases where we had to go, this isn't working. We need to reformulate. Let's get to work. So.
Greg, I have a question. Considering that I'm going through your website, and based on what you're saying, you only have plant protein, right? That's the only thing in terms of protein. That's the only version you have. Typically in United States, we see a lot of brands, like Robert said, concentrating on isolate and casein, and more like mainstream, I would say, or more normal, I would say, approach, more typical. And then they, when it gets a little bit competitive, they try to add maybe something like a plant or something like that as a B option, or as an extra option or something like that. Or maybe they just have more money, so they decide to explore the options a little bit more and target different audience. You went straight for plant protein, and you did explain why, and I respect that. But my question is like, typically, typically, I haven't tried many plant proteins, but typically it is a general understanding that plant protein tastes like shit. However, there are some companies that have a better reputation for flavoring, I guess, or whatnot. Like, for example, in America, we have Beam, which I know they plant proteins supposedly taste good. I haven't tried it. I tried the isolate. It tasted very good. So I would assume that they know what they're doing. Now, based on what Lukasz says, and and based on general perception, I understand your plant protein tastes very, very good. And I know that there is a lot of arguments between stevia and sucralose. Again, typically, it is understandable that sucralose tastes better than stevia. So my question would be, considering, and again, I take your word for it. I respect Lukasz's opinion. Your protein tastes very good. What is the secret? I mean, if you can, how did you approach it? How did you approach the research that your protein tastes so good?
To be honest with you,
the reason why I'm asking, because our brand, for example, when we get samples, I just go around the gym and I let other people try just to get the majority to say yes, because everybody's different. So you clearly succeeded, and you probably had a very interesting approach as to how to make sure that your plant protein tastes good.
So we've got two things. I'll explain this in two phases. So number one, my flavoring technologist has been working with stevia for close to 20 years. And he knows the different types, the Reb M versus Reb A versus the balance of those. And he's at the sort of tip of technology when it comes to stevia. And using natural flavoring or masking agents. And you'll be surprised at what some of those are, which I'm not going to give away today. But there's some common ingredients that you would put into flavoring, and maybe even products that can mask. And he knows notes, so he knows which. I'll go to him and say, hey, in this product, I want, let's say, a coffee flavor. And he'll go, no, those herbs won't work with that coffee note. You need to go with a citrus flavor. So he knows which flavors work with the notes of the raw materials, which will work with the notes of the stevia and bring those out. So that's number one. Having a really good flavoring technologist is number one. Number two is probably more the fun stuff, and that's kind of like going around the gym like you do, Robert. But we have a bit more of a structured strategy. So if there's existing businesses in the market or products in the market that we're trying to attempt to go into, we will gather research on what the perceived best tasting products are in that market, and we go out and buy them. And we buy those products and we bring them back into the office and we set up a blind taste testing situation. So we get our samples in and we get the 5 top brands samples and we put them in a blind tasting where only one person knows what everything is, and it'll be listed 1 through 15. And we go and we rate them out of 10. Like, okay, this is, and we don't know if it's ours, we don't know if it's theirs, we don't know whose it is. We just rate them. And at the end of that result, we see if we're in the mix. And if we're at the top, then we take our flavors individually and we critique them and say, okay, how could we improve this? Is it too sweet? Is it not sweet enough? Is it? And that's when we do the get it out to the beta testers, the gym. We've got an RTO, which is a registered training office next door of fitness individuals that work on what we call Cert 3, Cert 4. So they're a company that trains personal trainers. So they're all like personal trainers and nutritionists, and there's 30 of them next door, and they become our beta testers because they're average people that are in the industry that use a little bit of supplements, but they're not right in the thick of it. So we use them as our beta testing group as well. We get them in and we get their reviews if they think it's too sweet, not sweet enough, to this, to that, and then we fine tune that. So first of all, great flavoring technologist. Second of all, be incredibly fussy. Like, don't settle for being second best, as we didn't when Ghost was up there at number 1, and I think Beam, as you pointed out, came in number 3, if I'm not wrong. Shane, is that right? I'm pretty sure. He's going to go check his own website.
I'll just go check.
But yeah, that's really as simple as it gets.
No, I respect that, because I kind of suspected, again, I trust what you said and I trust Lucas's opinion, and just from what I read, it seems like the reviews are absolutely incredible in terms of the flavoring, the taste, and so I suspected that you probably do like beta testing and you go out there and ask people's opinion, because to me personally, I think that that's the best way to judge really the feedback. Because I know, for a fact that there are some brand owners who just, okay, I like it, good enough, but at the end of the day, I don't think it works. And I think you need extensive research in terms of like what majority of people, you have to pay to play off the feedback of your consumer. And I honestly suspected that's what it is. And looking at the labels, even your presentation, your marketing, I'll be honest, I told Robert this morning, I haven't heard about your brand. I apologize. But I mean, from what I see, fantastic job. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. And just as a quick example of exactly what you're saying. So we're in the development stages of a vegan plant protein bar. And last year, just before we all broke up for Christmas, we had 3 flavors, and 2 of them we'd approved, and we were just working on the last one, which was if I'm not mistaken, it was a salted caramel peanut brittle, and it was it sounds amazing, and it should have been, and we all thought it was good. We all thought it was, like you said, it's pretty good. We like it. Let's go with it. It's number 3. And then we came back after Christmas. We said, you know what? Let's go out and redo this with everybody's competitive products, the exact same way that we've been doing everything else. Don't skip this step, where we compare ourselves blind to the rest of the brands. And we did that. And really interestingly, we came in number 1 and 2 with the other 2 that we had approved. And then there was about 5 other brands between ours, and we came dead last on that salted caramel peanut brittle. Like, it was dead last, and we thought it was good enough to bring to market. You know what I mean? So it's really important, that process to us, and it's something we don't skip anymore, because we realized that this gave us, that was kind of a weakness. If we'd gone ahead and put that to market, that flavor, people might have picked it up the first time because it sounded amazing, but they would have gone, it's pretty ordinary. And the 3 flavors we have now, the last flavor is now changed to what we're going to be calling a choc berry ripe, because over here in Australia we have a cherry ripe bar. and it's pretty popular. So it's basically a chopped berry, chunky chocolate with cranberries and stuff through it. It's absolutely beautiful, and we're using
Sounds good.
fava. We're using
Sounds good,
fava. Oh, it's amazing. And we're using a fava protein in that, and fava protein is grown domestically here in Australia, and it's very fine. It's incredibly good protein to work with, although it has quite a nutty taste. But it's something we're going to consider bringing into the plant protein to improve it as stage 3 even. So, we're just not going to settle for #1 spot, because let's be honest, someone could come along and do it better than us as well. And if we can do it better again, we'll continue to keep evolving.
Awesome.
With the leaning more towards the premium ingredients, the natural sweeteners, the natural flavors, no artificial colors, dyes, fillers, all of that kind of stuff. And obviously that's going to add a little bit to the cost of the product. Do you have any trouble not convincing consumers, but showing them, highlighting the benefits and telling them, hey, you might pay a little bit extra, maybe you'll get 1 or 2 less servings from our products than your other competitors, but the quality's there. How do you go about navigating that gap and bridging the gap, trying to get them to understand, hey, you're paying for premium stuff here and it's worth it?
I've got a 2-stage answer to that too. And that is, #1, you're dead right. There's an expectation that it should be the same price. And we're going up against rice and pea blend proteins. And, Robert might know this if he's worked with any vegan-based plant proteins, but those of you who haven't worked in formulation, rice and pea in Australia, let's talk Australian dollars for a second, is around $9 a kilo, $9 to $11. Now, smooth protein, which is the watermelon seed, the pumpkin seed, those sorts of things, even the hemp that we use, which is a smooth hemp protein, are up around the $30 to $36 a kilo. All right, so 3 to 4 times the price of the cheaper plant proteins that most companies are using. Yet when we're on shelf, we're expected to be the same price. So customers will not pay a premium for a commodity product like a protein. So to answer your question, Robert, we just make less margin. It's a shit business model, to be honest, but it's about honesty. It's about truthfulness. It's about results. It's about products that we want to use. Sometimes we sacrifice margin for that result. Sometimes it aligns. Sometimes you'll get a product that actually does make okay margin, but at the same time gets the result, but it's rare. And with other products, we're not really that premium. I mean, one probably example where we are is the Vitality Switch, which Lukasz talked on before. So Vitality Switch is our superfood greens, detoxifying, anti-inflammatory, gut health, probiotic, digestive enzyme. It's got everything in there. Yeah. That product is very much more than just a greens. But when I hear people selling it in store, they're like, "I should try this greens from Switch Nutrition. It tastes great." Yeah, okay. What about all these cool things we've added into it that help your body and your physiology and your health and your performance? We've come to realize that, and that product is, say, $79 in Australia for 30 serves versus, say, other greens that might be 30 serves with 4 or 5. We don't use any wheatgrass or barley grass. And our take on that is because you're a freaking human. You're not a cow. You're not a sheep. You're not a goat. You don't eat grass. You've never eaten grass. We've never evolved eating grass. So why the hell are we using grasses? So we're using kale, spinach, mint, coriander, Craxel, chlorella, all these things that humans have evolved eating.
All things that Shane likes.
Yeah, exactly. So we're using these things that actually get the result that could be or should be on the human plate that maybe aren't anymore, and we're trying to create that diversity. And it's a very special product. It's one that's a non-negotiable for me that I have every single day, and have done since we started the company. And I've only had 1 day off sick in the 4 years that we've been working. So it's a great product. I love it to death, but it's overpriced compared to the market. People don't mind. They actually do pay for it because they tell their friends, their family, how they felt after using it. So they had less bloating, they had better, stool or bowel movements, they had, less breakouts on the skin, they had, improved cognition, better health, better immunity, better detoxification, less inflammation, better brain function. These things were actually noticeable when they used it. So sometimes you have to sacrifice the price that things are going to be to get the result. And people are prepared to pay it as long as they do get that result. It's just trying to convince them initially. But once they try it, they're away laughing. And that's where samples come in. So that's why we sent a whole bunch of samples to Lukasz, because if you get people trying a sample and there is a dose-dependent result, they'll come back and buy it. But some products like protein, you take it, you're not going to see an instant muscle gain. It's really just based on flavor.
Right. You brought up the fact that y'all use smooth protein a couple of times, and for the listeners that may not be as familiar with it, can you kind of, I guess, explain a little bit about what that is and why it's a little bit different than the standard pea protein, brown rice protein, soy protein isolates they'll see in some of the other vegan powders on the market?
So first thing with vegan is that, as you probably know, there's very few vegan proteins that are complete. In other words, they contain all the essential amino acids and at the right ratios for humans. We have a test which we can sort of evaluate proteins on, which is called the PCDAAS, which is the Protein Corrected Digestibility Amino Acid Score. It's the gold standard of assessing a protein for its amino acid value to a human body. And generally speaking, whey protein has a score of 1. Casein's not far off that at 0.95. So those are considered the higher quality proteins from an amino acid profile. When you get into peas and rices and things like that, they start to get down around the 0.8, 0.7. Soy is a little bit higher, but I don't want to work with soy because from a phytoestrogen perspective, the jury's still out. I have my thoughts on that, but everybody's different, and I think the different situations for soy might work in menopause or perimenopause and may not work for young men or what have you. So we've gone away from soy as a vegan-based protein and stuck with plant-based proteins that provide the best amino acid profile when they're in combination. So if you were talking to a vegan and you were structuring a vegan diet for someone, you would talk about food combining. You would talk about putting grains with legumes, with seeds, with nuts, and finding those food combinations that provide the best amino acid and complete protein sources. We're taking the exact same strategy with our plant protein. So instead of just going rice and pea, we've gone for all these different proteins after looking at the amino acid profile of those proteins and the strengths and the weaknesses of those amino acid profiles of those proteins. We've then combined them to get the most perfect protein for humans in a vegan plant protein. And it just fell into place, if I'm being honest, Robert, that 2 of those proteins were pumpkin and watermelon, which we could get from Compound Solutions, which were smooth proteins, which is now changed over to a different company, but they just fell into place. Horrendously expensive proteins, but that doesn't reflect on our price. We just don't make money on it. We do it for the love of it, that protein, to be honest, because we need a protein in our lives and we want our customers to have one too. So it is a very expensive protein to produce, but it's no more expensive on the shelves here in Australia because we're trying to make it affordable so people can get the result.
I wonder if, because Robbie and I were talking offline or off the podcast on a few things about just the cost of protein in general, and like for a while, I mean, like whey protein concentrate, I was talking to another brand owner, they're paying like $16 or $18 raw cost of goods for just like a 2-pound tub serving of it. I wonder if the gap between the cost of plant proteins and whey proteins is starting to normalize a little bit to where they're just given the raw goods material shortage. I don't know if you or Robbie can speak to that because I don't have as much access to the cost of goods.
It's they're commodity items, so it fluctuates, and I think sometimes the market holds product and ingredients in order to push the price up. I know that Robbie will be able to talk more on what's going on in the US with the tension between the US and China at the moment, and raw materials coming out of China. We don't have those same issues in Australia, so we still get a fairly good flow of ingredients out of China. And it's funny because there's this sort of perception, certainly in Australia, I don't know if it's the same in the US, where Chinese ingredients aren't as good as the ingredients out of Germany or wherever. And yeah, it is. It's bullshit. I mean, the fact that people taint a country with an ingredient. I mean, these guys are technological geniuses, some of them, and they know their craft. And if you're that concerned about using glutamine from China, maybe put your iPhone or your Samsung Galaxy down and try and go and find a phone made and built in the US. It's just not going to happen, right? So you've got to go where the specialty and specialists are. And China has a long-standing history of producing high-quality raw materials when it comes to these amino acids and other compounds. So yeah, we get our ingredients out of China. Yeah, we test them, and we test them rigorously when we get them here. And then we also post-market test the product to make sure that there's no contaminants, microbiological testing, gluten, dairy, lactose testing, all of the tests that we have at our disposal, we test. That's why we're making sure that our products are the best possible ingredients for a start, and that when we finish the blend, that everything we say is on the label is in the product. And that's a tough test. We can't do that to some degree with everything. Like say Vitality Switch, which has 35 different botanicals. This is a really tricky one, and Robert, you might appreciate this too, and Robbie. The vitality switch, it changes flavour from season to season, because you might get a coriander that one season is, really high and in antioxidants and polyphenols and bitter because it's had a dry or arid growing season, which is great. It's got lots of the antioxidants that you want, but it changes the notes and flavour. So we've got a new process, apart from the process that I told you about before, which for flavour testing. Every single batch of vitality switch that we create, before we actually blend it, we do a tabletop sample of every batch, and we test it against our retention sample to make sure that the flavour matches, because the botanicals change from batch to batch, season to season, and we want to make sure that we're getting the same flavour notes. But there was one batch where we didn't do that, and it tasted a lot sweeter than the previous batch, and we had complaints from people saying, "Oh, this is so much sweeter." And we didn't put any more stevia in, but what had happened is there wasn't as many bitter plant notes in there, and the stevia had kind of pushed its way up to make it taste too sweet. So we have another step involved with that particular product. We're actually testing it before we actually go to blend with the raw materials that we'll be blending with, from that batch, from that season, from that growing specific season. So it is tough, it's technical, but it's something that we pride ourselves on, and we want to maintain our high standards and reputation.
I think you're absolutely correct, and I couldn't agree more. The whole conversation about Chinese ingredients that are not good or whatnot, it's an absolute total bullshit. It depends what you're getting, it depends where you're getting, and depends on your manufacturer. It all comes into perspective. Robert has been an advocate of just pure creatine monohydrate, which obviously comes from China. And as long as I remember, Robert's been saying there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's creatine, it's of a high quality, and the whole Chinese conversation is absolute bullcrap. One of my manufacturers, obviously I'm not going to go into specifics, but just to, just like anything, of course, China also has crap ingredients, and they have, shady manufacturers and ingredient suppliers. I mean, it comes with the territory. I've seen it in Russia. I've seen it everywhere. So you can't just pinpoint and say that and accuse Chinese of that, because let's face it, even in the United States, you have very, very shady manufacturers. You have very, very shady brands. I mean, we could go on and on and on. So, pinpointing to China and saying that China is the bad guy, that's, maybe in some aspects, but definitely not in this one. And, at the end of the day, if you have a solid manufacturer and you're testing the ingredients, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. And I have seen it before where my manufacturer would call me and would say, you know what, we ordered something from this new supplier or whatever, and we tested it and it came out junk. So you know what, your product's going to be delayed because we have to order something else. And then once it comes, especially in the beginning, I would go like, guys, can you fucking just make my product? Why it's delayed? And they're like, yeah, we got the ingredient, but now we have to test it. So if it's a reputable manufacturer, obviously you will test the product. So absolutely nothing wrong with, getting the products from China, and, you don't even have to justify it. At the end of the day, if your product is solid, your product is solid. And again, from what I've seen, you're doing things right. So it doesn't really matter.
It also comes down to integrity of the brand, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If you're working with a manufacturer and he said, yeah, I got your ingredients, and you will say, okay, then if you got my ingredient, make me my product. But at the same time, if the manufacturer is legit and he wants you to get the best, what you're paying for, basically, he will say, okay, dude, but please wait, because you can have a shitty product.
Yeah, and I think it's important. But circling back, Robert, to your first question, which is, how's it affecting the price? COVID's affected the price. With the transportation of raw materials around the world, and that supply chain being disrupted, and then tensions between the US and China, has impacted across the price. I mean, even just the US dollar. It's funny because people here in Australia, when the US dollar, our dollar drops against the US, we seem to see a lot of people get worried about US imported products. they don't realise that it impacts us too, because our raw material our manufacturers here in Australia are buying raw materials from around the world, including China, in US dollars. So, we use EVF Chargo, which comes from Finland, and we pay in US dollars. We buy Aya matcha, which comes from Japan, and we pay in US dollars. So it's crazy that we're buying these ingredients through supply chains that are all paid in US dollars. So that can impact cost of price, depending on what our dollar's doing with the US, depending on what the global economy's like, depending on what the supply chain's like, depending on what the tensions and with those countries of suppliers like. And some companies, just like, say, Fonterra in New Zealand, for example, who's one of the best quality whey proteins in the world, the New Zealand government forces the Fonterra to supply the domestic market before they sell out on the global market. Which is good for New Zealand companies.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, you're taking care of your own first, which
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it kind of should be that way. But
100%, yeah, I agree, and they're protecting their local market versus global, which is fantastic. But then what Fonterra do is they come to you at the start of the year and say, give us your forecast for 12 months, and you get stuck with that. So if you have any late, kind of product development, you go, shit, let's do this, and let's use, Fonterra whey, you might be screwed. Or if you have a surge in sales and you outdo your quota, you're not getting raw material. So you're going to have to outsource that, find something different, change your formula. So there's a lot of tension and stress. I'll be honest with me, trying to make sure that, just one product, 35 different botanicals that I'm in charge of trying to find the raw materials for and make sure that they're at the quality and standard that we had for the first batch is stressful. As a process in the beginning, and I get involved in that because we do use a contract manufacturer, but I also outsource ingredients and find them. Say, for example, Dynamine, which is by Compound Solutions, we were the first to bring it to market in the world. We were the first company to release a Dynamine product. It's now banned in Australia, so that's not a really good end to the story. But it was a terrific ingredient. It still continues to be a terrific ingredient, and it's so we're on the cutting edge of finding and looking for ingredients that are going to be innovative and effective, but at the same time, getting the supply of those ingredients and the pricing of those ingredients can impact the end product. And it's I'll tell you right now, there's not as much money to be made in natural products as there is in the artificial flavored and sweetened products. And as an example of that, because my manufacturer makes both, we were looking at developing a whey protein, despite my dislike for just whey protein for me personally. That's partly why we did plant first. We were looking at a whey protein, a natural whey protein, and to flavour and sweeten a kilo or a 2 pound whey protein naturally versus artificially was about a $3 to $4 difference in raw material costs. So that might not sound like a lot, but when you then put that into wholesale and then put that into retail and the margins that change, really it should be $10 to $15 dearer. But the expectation now of the consumer is, I want my natural protein to cost the same as my artificial one I was using, and I want it to taste as good. And that's just the expectation. And it's a high expectation to be held to, and we're doing our very best to achieve that. But honestly, it is at the sacrifice of margin, and someone's got to wear it. And unfortunately, that's us as a manufacturer or as a producer of products.
Who would you say is the target demographic for Switch Nutrition? Is it like people interested in general health, fitness, and wellness? Is it the biohacking community? Is it bodybuilders? Is it like CrossFit athletes, weekend warriors? Who's kind of like, obviously people would say, I want everybody to buy my product. Yeah, we understand that. But usually when you start a business, you have a very specific, like, we're going to start here, but then, we can expand out from there. So I guess, where's the mindset for Switch in regards to that?
To be honest, we didn't even start with a target demographic. We just started with making products for us. So we wanted products that we could believe in, we could trust, and we could use ourselves. So that was the real target audience, was us. We figured there's got to be more people like us, right? So, and then from there, I would say that it's developed to a more female, focused market. Even though our packaging doesn't scream female, I hate pinkifying shit. Like, I don't want to just take, hey, here's a protein for women, and put it in pink and say happy days. It's been done so many times before, and I just don't believe in it. So it's even Estro Switch, which is our, I guess, arguably female product that helps with the balance of estrogen in the body. We did make that pink, but we did that intentionally, almost as a bit of a what we call piss take or a joke towards men, and say, guys, you can use this too, because if you've got extra estrogen in the body, this can bring and balance that estrogen through reducing aromatase and sex hormone binding globulin and all this cool shit. But very rarely will we go down that route of, even though we are more female focused, and it's only become more female focused because my marketing manager, who's also my business partner, she's female, and she speaks in a female voice to a female customer. So her marketing has been very sort of feminine indirectly and not intentionally. But then women care more about natural health than guys do. Like, at the end of the day, and that's a bit of a generalization, but guys, and
true.
I'm just talking about myself. In my 20s and 30s, I don't give a shit about stevia. If it had sucralose and it got me jacked, no problem, I'll take that. But then in my late 30s to early 40s, and you've got gut issues and joint issues and brain fog and these other problems, you start to go, what can improve my health? What can improve my focus? And then we start to get into the biohacking community, the CrossFit community, people who want natural. I would say our last customer is a bodybuilder. So we just don't get a lot of bodybuilders buying the brand, but that's not entirely true, because bodybuilders get into a hypo-calorie state. So they're in a low-calorie state, which is a stressful state, and the body increases cortisol. And when you increase cortisol, you get sleep disruptions. So we get a ton of bodybuilders and fitness competitors and physique competitors using Adrenal Switch to help, I guess, arrest that high level of cortisol and improve their quality of sleep so they can recover, build, grow, burn fat. So yeah, we do get bodybuilders buying the brand because their mates tell them about it, but they don't go out and go, I want Switch Nutrition because it's natural and it's going to help me. They go, I want Switch Nutrition because I've got a problem and I need to solve it. So yeah, mostly female orientated because they like natural, and more health wellness, followed by CrossFit, biohacker, and then lastly bodybuilder.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Walk us through Coffee Switch, because I love the ingredient panel on this. I'll pull this up for the consumers out there, or the listeners out there that want to check this out.
I was just looking at that. That's pretty cool.
So, I mean, I love the breakdown of this. So in one serving, or one packet of it, you get 3.3 grams of coffee. You get 2 grams of a 5 mushroom blend in there. You've got 1,500 milligrams of GoMCT, which is going to be like a good thickener and a good source of short or medium chain fatty acids. 150 milligrams of an extra, which is going to be a caffeine sustainer. 100 milligrams of Hydrocurc, which is a water-soluble turmeric powder. 100 milligrams of Neurofactor, which is, I love that ingredient. I would put that in every damn formula I ever put out on the market. I love it that much.
I love it too. Yeah, it's great.
50 milligrams of theobromine for some good extra long energy, and 25 micrograms of huperzine. So, yeah, walk us through this. So
you buy coffee for 2 reasons. You either love the taste or you love the energy, right? And so we wanted to just create a longer lasting energy, more productive, brain focused nootropic blend. In the original blend, the blend that Lukasz got, and Shane may or may not have tried because he doesn't like coffee, there was a 7 mushroom blend. It was different to what you see there today. It didn't have maitake. It had chaga, lion's mane, and reishi. But as I briefly spoke on earlier in the conversation, chaga, reishi, and lion's mane are banned in Australia. They're novel foods. You can't use them here. Even as an importer, as Apollon, you wouldn't be able to bring those products into Australia and sell them in volume in Australia. So it's a really challenging space to try and get a good product. And I don't think we've sacrificed a lot. That mushroom blend's really more in there for the anti-inflammatory, brain fog, detoxifying, support blend. What's really doing the heavy lifting in that formula is the single origin Arabica coffee, the Neurofactor, and the Nextra. Those other ingredients are really supporting that. But if you put those 3 ingredients together, caffeine, Nextra, and Neurofactor, fucking work. Like, they work. And they work synergistically because they're working on different parts of the mental capacity of people. And I just love, like, Alpina Galanga is essentially an adaptogen. People aren't talking about it that way, but it's improving the adrenal receptor sensitivity. And this is one of the big things that I talk on a lot. Like, how many people take caffeine or a pre-workout or a fat burner and go, far out, that was awesome, dude. and then a week later, like, now I need to double scoop it, now I need to triple scoop it, you know, and they lose that sensitivity to caffeine. And what I love about Alpina Galanga or an extra is it brings back the body's sensitivity to caffeine or catecholamine, so it allows your body to respond better to the stimulant. So in many ways, we can reduce the stimulant load, but improve the outcome of that stimulant. And that's just phenomenal for us, because as a health first brand, I don't want to be loading you up on 400 milligrams of caffeine. I want you to respond to 160 or 200 milligrams of caffeine in a way that only 400 would have done in the past. And Alpina Galanga and Eurofactor allow us to achieve that. So yeah, I'm very proud of that formula. I drink it every day. It's a freaking amazing coffee. It tastes insanely good, but most importantly, it does the job it's designed to do, which is improve focus, alertness, productivity, mental health, clarity, and just that nootropic, mood-enhancing, dopaminergic kind of feeling where you're just so motivated to get shit done. Yeah, I just can't talk on it enough. I love it. It's one of my favorite products.
What's the difference between naked espresso and espresso in terms of flavor?
Good question. And we had to call it naked because we actually use, and this comes down to my flavoring technologist. So there's a particular type of stevia that when you add it in, it has a very bitter note similar to coffee, and it doesn't resemble sweetness. So we've added stevia into the naked espresso, but on the palate, it doesn't present any sweetness. But unfortunately, by adding stevia in, which is technically a sweetener, we can't call it unsweetened. But naked espresso is unsweetened. It'll taste unsweetened. It just tastes like a long black, whereas espresso is slightly sweet. And then cafe mocha is obviously the chocolate you want. So naked espresso, unsweetened, slightly sweet, and then chocolate sweet.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a new category. I like this functional food category. I've seen that Inspired brought out Brewed, which is a nootropic coffee blend. I actually worked on one of the first formulas here in Australia, a coffee blend, which wasn't a nootropic one. It was just like an energy coffee. And I know Lukasz has told me, I think they've got lion's mane and coffee blend over there for a nootropic one as well. So I'm a fan of that category. I think that if you can make the second most drunk beverage behind water and the first most drunk brew in the world better, take your average cup of joe to something amazing. Why not? So our strategy and our philosophy is a better brew, a better you, and we're just helping people, feel and look better, every day. And geez, when you drink this coffee, like if you've had coffee before and you drink Coffee Switch, you would know the difference. Like there are days when I just have enough coffee, and the enlightenment that you get mentally is like night and day different.
Yeah, I definitely get that ramping up of like the neuronal activity with Neurofactor. I've yet to try an extra. I like the research behind it, the mechanisms of action, everything. It's really cool. I haven't tried it on my own to see how it works when you're using it in combination with caffeine and or Neurofactor.
Robbie, have you used it yet, mate, for Apollo?
Robbie, you?
Robbie, you haven't tried it? Get on it, dude.
I have actually a sample packet of an extra, but I haven't tried it.
So what we did here is we got a sample of an extra, and we got a sample I don't want to speak ill of anyone else, but we got a sample of Dynamite at the same time, which is the Mangifera extract that everyone was sort of raving about at that time. And we tried them in isolation. So we tried an extra on its own, Dynamite on its own. We tried an extra with caffeine, Dynamite with caffeine, and just to see, how they responded, and it was completely different. And
I tried actually Dynamite with caffeine. That I did try, and to be honest with you, I didn't see the difference between just caffeine and caffeine with Dynamite. I mean, I'm sorry,
No, I'm the same, and I don't want to look. I'm sure they've got good research behind it, but at the end of the day, we have to, as brands, come back to how does it actually work? Research is all one thing, but let's get the anecdotal evidence, and are we actually feeling a difference? And it was notable that an extra on its own, I felt more alert than coffee 4 or 5 hours later. So just on its own, it's amazing, and it's not a stimulant, so it's not a central nervous system.
I literally got the sample of an extra maybe like 2 weeks ago, and it's funny because it's sitting in my car because I went to see my manufacturer and we were talking about the ingredient, and he told me that he said it's not very powerful. He says it's not on its own. His opinion was that it's not something that's groundbreaking, but he said when you combine it with caffeine and you combine it with certain nootropics and stuff, that it definitely, he can feel like it enhances the caffeine, and he definitely felt the difference. But I haven't tried it yet. Like I said, I have the sample in my car. But Dynamite I tried, I think maybe a couple of months ago, and I tried it on its own, and I tried it with caffeine. And to say, like when you try something and you say, and you add something else, and you go, well, there is a difference. I honestly didn't feel nothing.
Yeah, same here. I've got a big like 5 gram thing of Dynamite here, and that I've been doing on and off, and it's some days I don't notice it at all. Other days I feel slightly more tired. It's the same thing with Dynamine. Like Dynamine in combination with teacrine doesn't work well with me, but if I just do caffeine and teacrine by itself, fantastic. I put all 3 of those together, caffeine, teacrine, and Dynamine. It's bad, man. It's almost like a depressant, the way it works on me. So I'm curious to see how caffeine and an extra will work.
Oh, they're amazing.
And you know what? I think I could be wrong. I think strangely enough, Dynamite is actually more expensive than an extra. I think I could be wrong, but
yeah. And we, I had the I guess, opportunity to interview Rostam and his team of scientists out of India. We did a podcast with them, or an interview series with them. Geez, the effort they went to grow this Alpina galanga in northern India, and then fingerprinted and DNA tested, and to make sure that it had the active ingredient every single time, every single batch. It's just groundbreaking, and the technology they're using and everything they're doing out of there. So, coming back to ingredients, I mean, we're sourcing them from all over the world to get the very best into our product. It doesn't matter where it comes from. I don't care if it comes from China, Finland, Northern India, Japan, New Zealand for our marine collagen. Wherever, we'll go wherever the best ingredients are. And an extra is one of them. Like, you will see it in a lot more products. It needs to be there. It is amazing. We've just put it into our Power Switch. So we've redeveloped our Power Switch product, and we were so impressed with the formula of the coffee. Like, we were using the coffee switch as a pre-workout, that we went, let's make our Power Switch more like that. So you'll see some similarities. The Power Switch has theobromine, hordenine. It has the caffeine naturally coming from decaffeinated tea leaves. And then we've got the extra in there, and the only thing missing from that product really is the neurofactor. But tyrosine, it just didn't probably need that extra neurofactor. But yeah, and this will give you a good example of how you've got to label things in Australia. So Pisium sativum, that's the tyrosine. You can't put tyrosine into a product without it coming from a natural source.
Weird.
Cordium vulgare, that's the hordenine. You can't put synthetic hordenine into a product. And look down here in the ingredients. You've got an emulsifier, glycerol monostearate. So the glycerol is in there for the pump. It's in there for the cell volume. It's in there for the purpose of physiological benefits. But we can't list it in the compositional information. It has to be listed in the ingredient panel. Creatine hydrochloride. It's actually, if we get questioned on creatine hydrochloride, it's in there as an anti-caking agent. Most expensive anti-caking agent you'll ever use, but it's there for the physiology of the benefit of the consumer. We've also got folate in there, or folic acid, methyl tetrahydrofolate, which is in there at 200 micrograms, and we can't call it out. We can't talk about it because it's not allowed to be in a caffeinated beverage, which is the category that we have for caffeine-based products here in Australia at this time. So, we've got to be clever to work within the restrictions and constraints that we have in Australia that are strict in terms of what ingredients can go in and how they go in. So even things like neurofactor, which is an extract from whole coffee fruit extract, we have to call it a whole coffee fruit powder, not an extract, because extract suggests that it's concentrated. Concentration suggests that it's medicinal, not a food anymore. So we can't play in a food powdered space if we have concentrated medicinal-based ingredients. Crazy.
For the listeners out there that are checking this out on YouTube, The listed group there, so we got 400 milligrams. Is that the yield of L-tyrosine? And the same thing with the 100 milligrams of the Theobroma cacao. Is that the 100 milligrams like the bulk extract, or is that the yield of the actual prominent alkaloid or amino acid you're trying to get?
Exactly. So that's the yield. So that'll be 100 milligrams of theobromine, 400 milligrams of tyrosine, 320 milligrams of caffeine, 300 milligrams of an extra, etc. So yeah, those are the top yields of those ingredients. It's just the way that has to be listed, and it can get confusing because people look at it and go, "Oh, is it Pisium sativum, or is it actually tyrosine? Is it is that all coffee powder, or is that the actual caffeine?" You know what I mean? So it's frustrating to some degree, the way we have to label here to be compliant. But if we don't do it, we get our product taken from the market, and we have to reformulate, reflavor, and redo everything else again. So it's a lesson we've recently learnt, and we want to make sure that we maintain shelf space and presence and results for our customers and clients. So we're not going to sacrifice benefit. We're just going to find a way that allows us to work within the realms of the legislation to provide the best healthy, effective product possible.
Interesting. There we go. Let me get that. See, Alpha Switch has spilanthes in it. That is such an excellent and underrated extract.
Yeah, I'd go again on that. That's amazing. Spilanthes acamella. The benefit of that SA3X is insane. What's going on in Australia right now is any capsulated product. We have until 2023, November 2023, to convert those capsulated products to TGA listed Austell products. And unfortunately, spilanthes is not on the TGA list. So you actually cannot use spilanthes in a capsulated product by 2023. So this is a capsule. We're going to have to move it across to a powder. And I don't know if anyone's ever tried spilanthes on its own.
That's going to be rough.
My God. So spilanthes is otherwise known as toothache plant. And it actually has a gum numbing or tongue numbing effect. So if you took spilanthes powder and rubbed it on your tongue or in your gums, it would make your whole face numb. It'd be like you're at the dentist. You'd be like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" So anyway, that is the effect of spilanthes at a physiological level in terms of increasing testosterone, free testosterone. It's amazing, but it's hard to work with as a powder. So we chose to put that in capsules, and now we're going to have to go back to a powder. So we're working super hard behind the scenes right now to get a flavor that will work with that product. You will still get some tongue and gum numbing, but we've managed to find an ingredient that minimizes that effect a little bit, but still gives you the physiological testosterone supporting benefits.
That's going to be interesting. I was not aware of the numbing properties of spilanthes. I've only ever seen it in a capsule, so it makes sense in that instance. But I just know all of these botanicals are taste horrendous. They're going to make it taste like ground up dirt when you're trying to drink it. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, no, it will be. It's going to be tough, but I'm pretty impressed with that second round of samples. So we're not there yet, but we're getting close. So I think we'll have a pretty good testosterone powder ready for 2023 to replace the capsule, and continue to move forward with great results for people. But yeah, I agree with paralysis by analysis. Spilanthes is a massively underrated extract, and I'm surprised that there's not more people using it. It's terrific. The boys on Price Plow, obviously did some stuff on it a long time ago, and that's where it caught my attention. I think in 2016. That was before we even started the brand.
That was me writing it.
That's the secret to your success.
Yeah. Oh, look, I keep a really close eye on what Robert and the guys over there were doing, and that's it's important. As is Stacked, we were Shane to try and see what's going on in the industry and be aware of the ingredients and what's going on. I'm just a massively a big fan of those two sources of information. The other place that I use for gathering research information is ergolog.com. I find them very useful. And as a starting point to just get a heads up on what ingredients might be beneficial, and then I just dig into the research from there.
Greg, I'm going through your website, and it's like I said, I'm very, very fascinated on so many levels, because number one, the flavors and the look is very basic, meaning, and that's a compliment. While everybody is going like right now for cartoon characters and going for crazy shit, and everybody's trying to be like super innovative, and most of the time you look on the label and you don't even know what the fuck you're looking at. Yours is very, very straightforward, and I honestly, it's a compliment. I'm not even kidding. I really like it because it's very, very straightforward. I think like the way it's presented, it's perfect. It's clean. Maybe that's the old person in me talking. I don't know, but I really like it. Yeah, probably. Again, for an old person, I really like it. So compliments from old people. But other than that, looking at ingredients, your ingredients are very, like, for an average consumer, they might be a little bit challenging to understand or even to know. And they might be even challenging for some brand owners, because we know we have a lot of brand owners that are complete fucking dumbasses, and they will release anything that just to make a quick buck, but they don't even know what the fuck they're doing. So this is impressive. However, the question is, how do you approach educating the consumer about all the different ingredients? I mean, this is complicated. This is good. This is absolutely amazing. I'm looking at it. I'm fascinated. I'm actually, when we're done, I'm going to go through your website. I mean, if I could, I would order some of this shit because it's really impressive. But how do you go about educating the consumer and staying on top? Because, the average consumer is not extremely bright and goes after either a price or a flashy advertising, or or influencer who is as dumb as he is. And but this is impressive. This is like Robert Schinetsky level. This is like supplement engineer level. So how do you go about targeting guys that don't know shit?
That's a great question, and I love that you. Yeah,
What the fuck? Why are you laughing? I was like a legit question.
There's some great truth bombs there, man. That's just absolutely how it is. And look, we failed. We failed to.
I mean, Robert's probably going to buy everything on your side, but unfortunately, the rest of us dubbies are going to go like, "What the fuck are we buying?" But I want to buy this.
Well, Robert's partly the reason, as I say, the formulas look the way they are, because I'm influenced by his work. But the truth is, we don't always succeed. Velocitol was a fail for us. Velocitol, great ingredient, couldn't educate the market on it. So we oftentimes just let the product do the talking. We do a lot of educational pieces. So what I'll do when I may send this to you, but we've got like a database of video content. So if I release Coffee Switch, I'll do a short 2-minute video on an extra. How does an extra work? What does it do? Why is it in there? What's the benefit of it? And how are you going to feel? And then I'll do a 2-minute video on Neurofactor. I'll do a 2-minute video on Go MCT. I'll do a 2-minute video on, Phenoshaga or whatever we're doing and using. So we do these short videos that we send to our retailers when we launch a product. So we launch a product and we say, here's your content. We create all the photos, all the great pieces that everyone needs for their influencers and all the rest of it. But we also record all of the educational pieces and send that out to them so that they understand it, and then they can champion the brand and say, hey, this has got an extra which will help improve the way your body responds to caffeine, and you're going to feel it more, and you'll last longer, and so that's how we kind of approach it. But it's harder. I'm not going to lie. And with the basicness of the brand, that is intentional. When you've got things like rainbow unicorn flavor, and who the hell knows what that even is.
Yeah, exactly.
Cucumber lime, it's pretty obvious what the hell it is. You know what I mean? So it's just trying to be true to who we are and who the customer is, and not take the piss or it's a saying in Australia and New Zealand, or not underestimate their intelligence, and just people just want to be talked to in a way that they understand. And with the ingredients like that, it's important that we have that backbone and that background. And we have to do it. And because you're right, like, most people look at an extra and go, what the hell? Sometimes people get excited by things like this. An extra was voted 2019 Innovative Ingredient of the Year by Nutri-Ingredients. And I only have to say that to people and they go, oh, it's the most innovative ingredient. Oh, wow, okay, I'll get on that. So it's interesting how people respond to different information. Some people, you dig into the weeds and you can give them a whole lot of physiological and biochemical pathways and how it all works, and they love that. But the average customer is like, am I going to feel more alert? Am I going to be more energized and more motivated? Is it going to taste good? Happy days. I'll give it a go. So it's trying to understand the complexities of the market versus, and I would say that Switch Nutrition customers are more savvy. By default, because of the formulas we've created, we have attracted people who are a little bit more educated on ingredients and want to know what these ingredients are. Whereas, you know, some of the other brands that are more lifestyle brands may not need to get into those. You know, we've got a brand here in Australia called Muscle Nation. And Muscle Nation, when they first launched, had a whole lot of different ingredients that were similar. You know, patented. One of their formulas, I think, had like 10 patented ingredients. You know, it was just insane when you looked at the formula. You're like, holy shit! They've just taken every patented ingredient they can find for pre-workouts and thrown it all together. And that may have been their strategy. Did they need to do that? No, because they've got influencers that have 2 million followers and they've got a good booty, and they just told them to drink this pre-workout and that's sold. So their formulas have now changed because they've understood that they don't need these complicated, you know, built out formulas that are full of patented ingredients. They could put caffeine and shit in a bottle and have this influencer tell them that it's going to work and they'll sell it. And that's exactly what's happened. I'll give you a quick example of this. Casein, right? We've got this custard phenomenon that they've created over here. And casein custards have been around for a long time in Australia. I don't know about the rest of the world, but you know, it's not a new thing. They brought out a casein custard, and I was at a sale day talking to a customer about, you know, her needs and her desires and what she wanted to achieve. She told me flat out she's dairy intolerant. Every time she has dairy, she bloats. She walked out of the shop with 4 tubs of casein custard because an influencer that she loves is using it, and she's going to go home and have the shits and bloat and fart because she's using this custard.
Okay.
That her influencer, you know, pal on social media said is just awesome and gave her a great booty. So yeah, that's the market. It's amazing, and you know, look, I can appreciate that, but at the same time, you know, it frustrates me, and I'm sure it infuriates you, Robbie, when you're creating quality products that are formulated to get results, and you know, other brands have just got the bigger budget, the better influencers, you know, that they're paying more, and more often than not, their formulas are less effective because the cost needs to be lower to pay the influencer. And that's what a lot of them don't realize. There's got to be some money there for the influencer. They're not doing this for the love of it. They're getting paid. And you know, to do that, to afford that, you've got to have a formula that's less costly and oftentimes less effective. So yeah, we don't have a big influencer market, and it does hold us back, but we have truth and honesty in formulas that bloody work.
No, that's fine. And my another question: do you sell mostly direct to consumer, or you go to retailers as well, like brick and mortar?
Mostly brick and mortar. So,
okay, and that's the reason why I wanted to ask you the follow-up question. So, if you go to brick and mortar, I assume you have sales reps, right?
Yep.
So, is it challenging for a sales rep to go into a store, a brand new store, and present your products, which I would assume are slightly more expensive than the garbage, 75 or 80% garbage that's out there? And then is it a challenge to convince the store, you know, the store owner or whoever's doing the purchasing, that he should invest in your company? I mean, maybe you just guys are very, very well known, but I'm just asking, like, to get into a store, is it challenging? Because I'm almost 100% sure that your products are more expensive, and again, you don't have fleshy skeletons and bullshit like that on your tubs, which fucking drives me nuts. So how is that like for you? Does it present itself as a challenge? Because I would assume he would have to educate probably the store owner or something like that, convince him why he should invest in your product.
Yep, it definitely is and was, but like we did with Lukasz, is I just sent him a sample package and I let the product talk. So we do the same at a retail level. We take the product in, we give them samples, we explain the science and why we're better, why we're different, and you know, we let the product do the talking to some degree. So yeah, that's kind of the strategy. In the beginning, Robbie, I'm not going to lie, I had a lot of relationships. I spent 20 years, you know, working to build those relationships. So you know, I had a lot of retail experience and wholesale relationships. So I was able to leverage those. One of the other things we did is that I created a 60-day body challenge that I launched with one of the major retailers here in Australia. So I gave them that content. I worked on it, the meal planning, the supplement programming, the training guides, everything. And we did all of that. and wanted to launch the brand with that challenge. And we did it in collaboration with one of the major retailers in Australia. So gave them everything that I'd worked on for free in order to get them to sell my product and leverage that relationship that way. And it worked a treat. And it got us off the ground, and then everyone knew Switch's name in Australia. And then friends were telling friends. I mean, we had a lady walk in here the other day into the office. We don't sell product here, but she walked in because she saw the signage. And Debbie had lost 23 kilos in the last 6 months using our products and couldn't rave about it enough. And she runs an aged care facility where she's giving some of the patients, I shouldn't call them patients, but some of the older folk there ketones, which is our keto switch, for brain function. She said the change in their mental capacity has been just phenomenal. So, we're sort of getting all demographics here, from people who want to lose body fat and be productive in the high-powered work environment, and maybe lawyers and techie guys with copy switch, through to aged care and weight loss for keto switch. Amino acids or essential amino acids. We were the second brand in Australia to launch an EAA when Extend was just at its peak. So everyone was going BCAAs, BCAAs, BCAAs. And we're like, no, dude, EAAs, you need all 9. Like 3 out of 9 ain't good enough. Let's go for the whole host here. And so we were championing a different message, but it was a message that finally got through. And now EAAs outsell BCAAs in Australia now. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the world, but there's several published studies, and one just as recent as I think 3 weeks ago, that again brought down the concept that BCAAs will build muscle. In the absence of all of the rest of the essential amino acids, they are incapable of building muscle. They might reduce muscle soreness, they might reduce fatigue and tiredness, but to build muscle on BCAAs is damn near impossible without the other 6. And that research is going to come through. Eventually, if we stick to the research, we're going to excel. But you're right, it is tough when you might be more expensive, and you certainly have more technical products to talk about. It's a lot of work, and that's why I'm up at 3:30 in the morning talking to you good folk.
Question from Bennett: paralysis by analysis. For someone in the U.S., is there a way to avoid the high shipping costs, like ordering $100 worth of products or over?
This is why we sell a lot to the US. If you spend over 150 Australian dollars, which is probably $30 US, no, it's not quite that low, but our dollar's pretty miserable. But if you spend over 150 US, we ship anywhere in the world for free. And again, if bloody Lukasz in Poland starts ordering all the time, it'll cost me money. But it's just something that we've done as a way to expose our brand to that international market, with the hope that we get to the right people, and in time we get the relationships that matter, where we can improve our distribution in those areas.
It's free overnight shipping too?
Not to the US. What are you talking about?
Order $150 free overnight shipping. No.
I look like Jeff Bezos. So no, we're not Amazon, but we definitely, and that was a problem during COVID. Like, I had people ordering from Slovenia. We had one lady, unfortunately, in Slovenia that waited 4 months for her product. So, and it's obviously not like that now. Lukasz, I think yours got there in about a week and a half. So
quick.
It was really fast now, but that wasn't the case when COVID first hit. We didn't have planes going out of Australia the way we do again now. So it was a real issue.
I don't know why, but it's always faster for the packages to come from Australia or New Zealand to Poland than from, let's say, US. For the package for US, I have to wait at least like 3 weeks and like 2 more weeks for the customs office to even process the packages. So that's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, because Lukasz, your name is probably flagged with the U.S. Department of something.
So bro. I'm on the dark list. So yeah, when they see my surname, they say it straight away. Oh, that fuck.
They probably open the bottles and they scan them. I'm like, nobody trusts you, so your name is definitely flagged.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Stop ordering the little white powder. Little bottles of white. Not a good look, okay.
Not him again.
What releases y'all have coming up for the rest of this year, Greg?
So we've got the protein bar that I spoke about earlier. So the vegan plant-based protein bar. So it's a whole food snack bar. incredible flavors. It's a peanut butter choc chunk, a triple choc fudge brownie, and the choc berry ripe. Yep. So those three flavors coming out. We've been working on a collagen product for a little while. It's still in the process of being finalized. That's a collagen skin, hair, gut health, joint mobility, a blend of low Dalton weight, hydrolyzed bovine and marine, plus cofactors. So we've got this organo silica, which is a 400% more bioavailable silica. We've got the biotin, the copper, the zinc, the vitamin C from kakadu plum, goji, acai. We've got a probiotic, which is the lactospore. We've got the digozyme and bioperine in there, and so just increasing the bioavailability and the absorption of it. It's an absolute game-changing collagen formula. It's amazing. We've been trialing it here with a few people, and just from a joint mobility perspective, which is the most noticeable thing quickly, just incredible results. So that's great. The skin and fine lines, wrinkles, stuff like that will take some more time to see, but the evidence is there. So we're pushing forward with that. What else have we got? Well, we were working on the development of a whey protein, despite my personal beliefs, and sometimes as a business, my business partners are like, guys, 70 to 80% of the sales in protein is in whey, and even pre-workouts and fat burners. I'm not necessarily a massive fan of them, but they're a huge category, and we wanted to have a healthier option for people. So we just felt like we needed to have a pre-workout or a fat burner to have a seat at the table with the retailer. They're not going to take us seriously if we don't have one in that category. So we do them because we can do them better, and because we need to have better options for customers to have there. And whey will be the same. That's really it for the next 3 months. We've just released our Essential series, so that launches next week, and that's basic stuff. So that's creatine, glutamine, beta-alanine, citrulline, MCT powder, and pure carbs. So we've done all that because we've had demand from our customers that were buying. And me personally, I was buying glutamine from a competitor. I was buying creatine monohydrate from a competitor, and I just went nuts and nuts. Like, we're using these raw materials all the time. Let's just package them up and make them available for people. So we did them at $39.95. It's a very basic strategy. So everything's the same price, whether it's carnitine or creatine or glutamine or beta-alanine or citrulline malate, all $39.95. And it's just the size that varies. So for carnitine, you'll get less than creatine or beta-alanine. Whereas every other company in Australia, at least, is going, creatine's in 500 grams in a kilo, or half a pound and a pound. And so everyone's gone for the same size, and they're all competing on each other for price. We'll just go the same price and just change the size. So it's a bit of a different strategy, but one that the retailers have really responded to. They're like, you mean it's $40 every tub I sell, and it's just a flat $40? Cool, that's easy. Yeah, bring that on. So so we've had some really good uptake from retail, ready for the launch next week on that one.
Outstanding. Give us a little bit of an insight into, I guess, your daily supplement regimen. What's that look like?
Cool. A lot. My supplement regimen, like most
that's a
of you
recurring
guys,
theme with most of the brand owners that we've had on here.
it kind of looks like a supplement store. So if I'm not working out, I usually use Coffee Switch in the morning, and we'll go for a walk around the block or the beach, and I play outdoor ping pong or table tennis with my partner in the mornings, just for a bit of fun. We're not good, by the way, but we just do it for a laugh. I think that health, how we look, feel, and function is a big result of our happiness in life. So we're trying to do things that keep us happy, because business is stressful. It's all about having fun and enjoyment. So Coffee Switch in the morning. On days I work out, I use Power Switch. During my workouts, I use Amino Switch, and immediately again after, I use Amino Switch. During the day, if I need to, I'll use Protein Switch as a snack or meal replacement with Vitality mixed in. So I mix the Vitality and the chocolate Vitality with the chocolate sea salt protein, and that's like a meal on the run. Low carb, good fats from the hemp, and we've got all the leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables and vitamins, minerals. I mean, Vitality Switch, 1 serving in ORAC value. For those that don't know what that is, that's oxygen radical absorbency capacity. That's the value that it brings in terms of antioxidant scavenging ability. 1 serving of Vitality Switch, we tested it recently, came back at 11 serves of fruits and veggies, but we claim no less than 8 serves of fruits and veggies in terms of ORAC value. So we keep our claim lower than we know will perform. So I add that in as my daily routine for the protein, getting enough vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. I use Alpha Switch 2 caps in the morning and 2 caps at night, and Estro Switch the same. And I use a fish oil supplement. I use 3 grams of fish oil and a gram of krill oil a day, and I use between 2 and 5,000 IU of vitamin D a day, and I use Adrenal Switch at night, which is my magnesium, zinc, ashwagandha after dinner for sleep. That's me. The 2 non-negotiables though for me would be Adrenal Switch, because it just sleep like a baby on it. I wake up with so much energy. You can't underrate quality sleep. So Adrenal Switch at night is a non-negotiable, and Vitality at some point through the day is a non-negotiable. I must have those 2. And lately, the Coffee Switch is becoming a bit of a non-negotiable because I feel so fucking good on it. But that's kind of my 2 or 3 products that I wouldn't go without, and the rest of it I slot in because I feel the benefits. But if people can't afford them, then start with those 2 or 3.
Outstanding. Awesome. Guys, do you have any other questions for Greg? And for all the listeners tuning in, this will be a last call for questions. If you guys have got anything, it can be on topic Switch nutrition, or it can be off topic stuff. So fire away.
Greg, besides your products, do you use any other brands, or maybe you have some favorites or something like this?
Yep. So I use Thorn. I use Nutricology, which are a couple of brands out of the US, and I have used Now Foods in the past, but I don't use a whole lot of their stuff now. I tend to stick with Thorn for my vitamin Ds and activated B vitamins and things like that if I need them. From time to time, glutamine and creatine, as I mentioned recently, I've been using brands here in Australia. It's mostly Switch now. But keep in mind, Lukasz, I created and formulated Switch for me, selfishly, in the hopes that other people are like me and that will resonate with it. So it really is, if I'm not using them, then, and I'm sure that Robbie's the same. I'm sure he's using primarily Apollo stuff, and anything that needs to fill the gaps, he'll find it, and I do the same. We don't produce everything, so I was drinking other coffees, and even a functional coffee that I formulated for another company prior to starting Switch. I was using that product until we finally created our own better than what was in the market.
Greg, since I guess we have slightly different markets, what the Apollon does and what you guys do. But a few times Shane actually mentioned it, and I agreed with it, that his opinion was, like, for example, for Apollon to stay in its own lane, and not to try and be a brand that it's not. So considering that you're also a very, very unique brand, and I see it's a very specific brand, definitely targets a certain audience, although I think just like Apollon, anyone can use it and could benefit from it. So but at the same time, you do have a very unique outlook, and you definitely have you make a kind of sort of a statement that you did a brand basically selfishly for yourself, which I respect tremendously, because that's what I did myself as well, and I'm proud of it. But do you, now that you obviously successful and you guys are selling everywhere, clearly doing well, is there any possibility or desire to expand to other regions, like maybe to a hardcore region, or maybe to go into different proteins, not just what you're doing right now, which is plant, but perhaps stepping into other territories and trying to compete with other brands, or you want to stay in your own lane and kind of like expand on what you're doing as a core right now, and not, because that's what I plan to do, and not to deviate from the plan. Although, I mean, we did release an immune system product, which kind of doesn't go exactly with Apollon's philosophy, and we were very successful with it. But at the same time, I'm still trying to make sure that Apollon stays Apollon, and not to, so to speak, to compromise. Is that something that you guys want to do?
No, definitely not. Like, we know who we are. We know what we want to do. You won't see hardcore pre-workouts. Look, to be honest, we did try a little bit of that. Our last pre-workout had estrogen, 320 milligrams of caffeine, Vaso-6, dynamine, and even when we first started, we had DMHA in our pre-workout. So I don't think we knew who we were back then, and I don't think we knew the identity of the brand. We were doing pre-workouts and fat burners because the market needed it, and we wanted to have a healthier option. But I don't think we were really true to who we really were. And now we know our identity. We're very comfortable in that identity, and we want to stay, where we're helping people's health primarily, and obviously how they look and function as well. So no, you won't see any hardcore pre-workouts from us anymore. You won't see those very different kind of packaging and design that looks cartoonish or any of that sort of stuff. It's not who we are. We have to stay true to our core values and what we want in ourselves and what our customers want. So you will see a rebrand in the next couple of years, and I think if anything it'll go softer, because at the moment we're a black tub, soft touch finish, high build kind of embellishments and stuff, which looks cool, and the color changes like between product. And when you put that on the shelf in a supplement store, you have a layer of blue and then a layer of purple and a layer of red. And, it looks great in stores. We won't go away from that coloration. It's because, as you'll probably think of here, Robbie, but customers will come back into the store and say, I'm using the blue one. They forget the name. I'm using the pink one. I'm using the yellow one. So they don't actually remember necessarily the name of the product they're using. They remember the colors or something that stands out about it. So we'll stick with the coloration, but we'll probably go to a softer white, more natural looking feel than the black. Because at the beginning, when we started the brand, we wanted to be, considered up there with the hardcore brands in terms of efficacy, but more natural health orientated. And that natural health orientation has probably taken over. And people see us as that more now than they did at the beginning. But to be taken seriously, we couldn't be in a brown paper bag like most other natural brands because there was already that. So we needed to be different, and it served us very well.
I agree.
Shane, did you get enough news bits to populate a stack story?
Oh yeah, I mean, what knows?
That's what Shane's usually doing to these podcasts. Everything
plant-based
like
protein bar coming with a whole food ingredients, 3 flavors: peanut butter chocolate chunk, chocolate airy, chocolate chunk, and then you got the Switch Nutrition Basics line. I think I got enough. I'm good.
Hey, call it basics. It's essentials, my friend. But they are.
Apologies.
You know what I mean? Like it's funny how just that verbiage it makes a difference. Like if you call something a basics line, it's like, oh yeah, it's basic. But if you call something essential, oh, gotta have it. And it's the same thing, but it's just a different,
Honestly, the amount of times I've had someone email me back to be like, you called it a basics line. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And they're like, no, we call it a commodity. And I'm like, I swear to God, you could look it up in the dictionary or the thesaurus, and it's not going to be too far off. But so many people get really hurt when I'm like, look, dude, I have a tag on my website that classifies something as basics. That's it. But I do change it. I do say essentials, commodities, daily stuff. I do change it, but basics just gets the word across.
So
but there's a compliment.
Yeah, I shouldn't get upset if you talk about the Essential series next week about basic. I should just, you're sort of softening the blow for me. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'll call it the Switch Essential series, but I'm probably going to be like, oh, it contains basic formulas. And I'll tell you what, just for you, I'll put it in capitals. So
hey, by calling it, if they're branding it as essentials and you're calling it basics, that could be costing them some profit. So they might bring a lawsuit against you, Shane. Just watch out, man.
That won't happen.
Defamation of character,
maybe if we were talking about an American brand, that sounds a little bit more like it.
Exactly. That's it. Good times.
Good stuff. Awesome, Greg. Well, thank you so much for joining us. For the listeners tuning in on the live stream and the ones that are going to catch this on the replay, thank you for joining us. As always, you got any questions, leave them in the comments section down below or shoot an email to thesupplementengineer@gmail.com. If you like what we're doing, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, give us a 5-star review on iTunes or any other podcast perusing platform if you so wish. And Greg, feel free to shamelessly and unabashedly plug anything and everything you want to right now, my friend.
Well, all I want to say is thank you for the opportunity. I mean, you've got four of the smartest guys in the industry sitting right here in this podcast, and that's not including myself, by the way. I'm talking about you guys. So, and you especially Robert and Shane have influenced the way that we bring products to market, and the knowledge that I've gained over the years, just from having your Price Player and obviously Stack 3D, as a source of information has been life changing for me and obviously for the brand. Really stoked to have been on here, and thank you very much for all your support. And Lukasz is a wealth of information and knowledge. I follow him quite closely on social media and some of the stuff he brings to light. I think it was the BCAA study the other day that I saw was shared by Lukasz. So there's a lot of really good, smart people out there, and people need to stop listening to the bullshit and start listening to the real people. And Robbie is clearly one of them, and has a great brand as well. And I'm excited to be in the midst of such legends and of the industry. And well done to you all in your own right. You're very successful, and we hope that one day Switch will be as successful as well, and internationally demanded as well. So we're looking forward to our future internationally, and hope that people take the time to go and have a look and see what we do, and see that our differences make the difference.
Thank you so much. That's going to be the first plant protein that I'm ever going to order. So I'm definitely going to order from your site.
There you go. I'll make sure I look out for it.
Thank you so much.
I'll charge you double on the freight. I'm kidding.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll send the bill to Lukasz.
Thank you. Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Greg. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on The Final Scoop.